to be the final chapter of the hand dredge videos that I've been making. And just for clarification purposes, in the title of the video, I call these things hand dredges, but on the video itself I actually call them sucker tubes. And to clarify that, I think a lot of people call them hand dredges, but with all of the recent dredging bans, just for your own sake, you probably don't want to get caught using one of these, someone asks you what it is, and then you call it a hand dredge. So call it a sucker tube, and that'll avoid any confusion, and it might keep you from getting a ticket for using a dredge. Okay, so besides that, I've made about a half a dozen of these, all different designs, and I'm going to tell you some tips and tricks in the design that I like the best. So let's start out with one of the original designs. This was a 2-inch, and for the seal I used just regular foam. Okay, so first off, this one you have to maintain the foam. That's a negative about it, and it is bulky. If something happens to this foam, well, then you're done with it. It's not likely to happen. I've never had it happen to me, but it could. So if this foam goes, then your sucker tube is done for until you can come home and replace the foam on it. Pretty simple about that one. Next, we have the one that I built with the threaded rod. If you'll notice, I've made some modifications. This was the part that was on the end of the pipe, and then it had the screw-on part, and the threaded rod went right through it. Okay, so I've changed this design, and I've gone with the bushing, the half-inch bushing, and the threaded rod is now covered by a piece of half-inch PVC pipe. It's a much smoother guide, and I like it a lot better. However, it is a heavy design, it is bulky, and it does take quite a bit of tools and materials to build just one of these. So it is expensive. That's the downfall of that. The next thing that I'll tell you is if you built one of these, I took it out, used it, and I noticed that the seal loosened up. Hopefully you can see that. This seal loosened up while I was hiking and while I was using it. So as long as it was tight, it worked fine, but it did loosen up. To solve that, what I would do is I would take a nut, a regular nut, and then I would take a locking washer, and then I would use either another nut and set the pressure exactly where I wanted it and then tighten everything down. Or if you want to leave it adjustable in the field without having to carry a 5/16 inch wrench with you, you could still use the wing nut idea and just tighten it down by hand. So that's probably a change I would do if I was going to keep using this one. Now I'm going to talk about my favorite design. My favorite design is the one where I use foam, and then I also have a backup piece of foam right here where I can screw this on and off and replace this little bitty seal right here. So this one's permanent unless you want to cut it off, and then this one is interchangeable while you're using it out in the field, which is kind of like a backup plan. So this is my favorite design because it's simple, it's cheap, and it's lightweight. Most of you probably already have this stuff at home to build it out of, and I'm going to give you some tips. Let me clear some of this clutter out, and then I'm going to give you some tips on building it. When you're going to build one of these, what I like to do first is make the foam seal. And the reason you're going to do that first is because it takes a little while to dry, and honestly, it's the working part of the entire operation. So make sure you have some fresh foam. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to cut off about a foot section of it. Okay? So I'm going to take a sharp knife, cut me off about a foot. It's easier to work with a small section than it is the large piece of pipe. Okay. So now that you have your foam, you want to check the size of it. This is the 1.5 inch pipe, and this is a 3/4 inch inner pipe. So you want to buy the foam for the 3/4 inch inner pipe, and you want to see how it fits. Now, when I build the 1 inch inner pipe with the 2 inch outer pipe, the foam fits pretty well. Well, on this 1.5 by 3/4, I've noticed that the foam is a lot larger, so you need a smaller section. So first we're going to look at the fit of the foam. So nothing's been done, just like you buy it at the store with the open seal. And then here's your pipe, and let's compare them. You can see that they're close to the exact same size. Now I know through using them that the foam is fine using it just like it is, although it is a little bit large, so we're going to only use about a 2 inch section. So for the main seal, the one that is pretty well permanent, what you're going to do is you're just going to pinch this pipe open, and then I like to use what you call shoe goo. I switched over that to this from the Gorilla Glue. Now I know I use a lot of glues in the process, but you really only need one tube. The Gorilla Glue will work just fine if you watch the first video, but this makes it a little easier. So I use this shoe goo, open it up, run me a seam all the way down it. Next I take my regular just clear Scotch tape. I take that, and you want this seam because it'll stay open if you don't close it, okay? So I like to take a piece and put it right in the center. Now leave you a tab end on the tape so that you can pull it off easier, because it will adhere down pretty good. So you got your seam down, then you're going to mash it down here. You're going to put your tape right across there. Now since this is only the half opened, you're going to take another piece of tape. You're going to start at the center and you're going to mash it down, working your way to the edge. And then you're going to take the end of the tape and fold it over, seal it down. Same thing here. You're going to do it down this way all the way to the end, seal it down. And you're going to leave that overnight, and when you peel the tape off, you'll have a nice beautiful seam. So here's a piece that I had to resize. Here's some of the foam that's completed right here. Store it in a good airtight container and put that out of sunlight. That way your foam stays fresh. Now, that's how you do the main seal. For this little bushing that you're going to create for the end here, you're going to notice that since the pipe is so large, if you try to use one of the regular pieces of foam, then it's going to rip right off every single time. So you do have to make the foam seal for this a little bit smaller, probably by about 3/8 of an inch. To do that, you're going to get the same piece of pipe, the same piece of foam insulation. So we'll cut off a small piece here. Alright. And now, what we're going to do, be careful, don't cut yourself now. Hopefully you can see this. There's a seam right there. And I know through trial and error that I want to take off about this much of it, okay? So I'm going to cut right down through here, and using the other seam as my guide, that helps me get a straight line. Now to take that section out, since we already have the halfway cut through it, we just go on and cut right through there. Again, be careful, do not cut yourself doing this, okay? And that's about how much I want to take out of the foam. Now what we're going to do is the same process. You want to do shoe goo all down the inside, a piece of tape right over the center, and then you're going to want to put more tape over the edges in a perpendicular fashion like this, because the seam is not already halfway closed, okay? So it's a little bit more difficult when you do it like this. You're going to end up with a piece of foam that's taped up more in this fashion. And then when you see how I have the tape here, a couple pieces here, and then I have the parallel tape going parallel. And when you peel all the tape off, it's going to look like this, okay? You know, a really nice seam, a really strong seam. Here's a piece of the pipe, just to show you a better example. Here's the piece that I've cut down, and this is solely for this piece that's going on the end, okay? Excuse me. So see how it's really tight fitting, whereas this one is the regular foam that I just closed up with the shoe goo, no modification, and it fits right on in there, okay? The reason that you make this smaller, as I said before, is so that it doesn't rip off. Alright, that's that. That's the key component, and that's probably what most people have difficulty with until they've built a few. So I've just saved you some time and effort by explaining the process of what I do with the foam. Okay, now let's talk about your materials. I would buy all the pipes in bulk, unless you know you just want to make one and you're not going to experiment anymore. So let my experimentation and all the money that I've spent experimenting, which is still less than the cost of one of the mass-produced or manufactured sucker tubes, let my experimentation save you money, and you just buy what you need and be done with it. You know, you'll have something that works. So if you buy a 5-foot section of the 1.5 inch pipe, you can make 2 sucker tubes out of it. I would cut them at 22 inches for a small backpacking one, and then a 32 inch one for one where you don't have to hike as far, or maybe you want to use it as a hiking stick when you go. So cut them at whatever length you want, but if you buy a 5-foot section, you cut one of them at 22, cut another one at 32, then you have 6 inches of pipe left over. You cut that 6 inch of pipe in half, and then you can take a 3-inch piece of pipe and put it on a 45-degree elbow, and that makes a really wide opening, and it you know, does really good. Okay, so that's the tip on the pipe. The inner pipe is 3/4 inch. You might as well go on and buy a 10-foot section, because it's only going to cost you about 50 cents more than the 5-foot section, and you're going to want extra of this pipe. This pipe, for the handle, you want to cut it about 2 inches longer than the inner pipe, okay? So, cut it about 2 inches longer. Next, you're going to want to buy the small coupler. This small coupler you can glue directly onto your pipe, and I usually use just some PVC pipe cement to glue that on, because I know I don't want to take it off. You can glue it on in any configuration you want, but here's how I usually do it. Okay, so the bushing, the part that's the sliding part that guides your handle in and out, you can do it the easy way or the hard way. The hard way is by a 3/4 inch bushing, take a Dremel, and then make it a little bit wider with one of the grinding wheels or some sandpaper. Or what you can do is get a 1.5 by 1 inch threaded bushing. That threaded bushing is just wider than the 3/4 inch rod, and it'll slide up and down. It'll save you from having to buy a Dremel and rounding out the inside knob. Either way works fine. I've done it both ways. They both work. Okay, so for the assembly, the handle assembly, you're going to need a 90-degree elbow, a small piece of pipe, however long you want the handle to be, and then you're going to need an end cap. Okay, I glue all of that on with the PVC pipe cement because I don't want it coming off. Now, from there, you want to make sure once this glue's dried, you want to slip your bushing on. It's going to be your guide rod, and then you're going to worry about your foam on the end. So what I like to do is I cut me about a 2-inch section of the regular foam, here we go, of the regular foam pipe, and I'll take and I'll slide it onto the pipe like this, and then I use Gorilla Glue. The reason I use Gorilla Glue is that it's expanding, and it expands into the foam. It sticks fairly well to the PVC, and it's also, you're able to get your fitting off. If you're too cheap to buy multiple fittings, you can still get the fitting off after it's been glued on with Gorilla Glue. There's not a very good chance if you glue it on with a PVC pipe cement. Okay? So then you take your Gorilla Glue and you make your smear up and down through here, about a 2-inch, 2.5 inch section here. So put all that on there. Then you're going to take this fitting. It's a 3/4 inch threaded fitting, okay? 3/4 inch threaded fitting goes on there. Then you're going to take your 2-inch and you're going to slide it back down, twist it a few times, and there's going to be an even distribution of glue all the way around it. So that's done. You need to let it dry. Before it dries, you can, what I like to do just for extra security is take a piece. I was using nylon before, now I like to use the cotton string. So take your cotton string, and what I'll do is I'll do an overhand knot, then I'll wrap the string back around it in the opposite direction, do another overhand knot, and then I'll put another knot in it as well. Usually the last tie there will be a square knot. If you do it wrong, it'll be a granny knot, but either way it'll be fine. Then what you want to do is get you some super glue. Get the cheapest kind of super glue there is. This is not it. Just buy the really cheap kind. Put your drop of glue on that knot right there. Then cut your ends off about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch on either side. Tie your second piece of string on there in the same manner. So around it, overhand knot, double it back, do a square knot, and then put you another drop of super glue. That's going to hold your knot in place. Then take your super glue and go all the way around your string, and that's going to hold it down. That's the same way that they use like the guides. That's kind of how they do the guides on the fishing rod and reels. You know, put the glue over it to secure the string down. That looks a lot cleaner and less messy than the Gorilla Glue that I was using before. So I know this is a lot of different glues, but this is the method that I found to be the best. Gorilla Glue will work fine on the whole project if you want to. Then what you're going to do after everything dries overnight, prop it up on something where it's not going to lean over and get glue everywhere. Then you're going to take your small foam, so a piece like this, and you're going to cut you maybe a 1/4 inch piece. There we go. You're going to put that on the end. Might be a little difficult to get it on there because you did make it smaller, but that's perfectly fine. Get it on there, and then you're going to put your end cap on. Excuse me. Cinch that thing down there. It's not going to look perfect, but here's the finished one right here. So here's the finished design there. There it is. You can see the glue that's kind of leaked out, expanded a little bit. There's the string that's been cinched down with the super glue, and then here's the threaded end cap. And you're going to want it to have a pretty decent pull. Okay? So when you're going to put it in your pipe, twist it a little bit. Holding at an angle and twist it. You don't want to rip this seal up the first time you go to use it. Okay? Now, if you find that it does not go in very easy, and when you push it in, it's extremely hard to pull, what I want you to do is take this part off, take this seal off, because there's no sense in messing it up. You want it to be good. And leave this part inside your pipe overnight. Just one night will be fine. The foam will compress a little bit, and then it's good to go. It's still a really good seal, but it's also not going to break your wrist to use it all day long, okay? So only leave it in there one night. It'll compress it to the size you need it, and then you can put your seal back on. Carry you a couple of these seals as backups when you're out in the field. That's kind of your fail-safe right here. This is an extremely effective sucker tube that's really cheap despite all the glues that I use. It is probably the most effective method and cheapest that I've made so far. Okay? So, that's how you do it. Then you can make your various attachments. For these attachments, I found that I like to keep one elbow, one of the 45-degree elbows, and make the attachments separate, okay? So, make you an attachment like this. All it is just a 1.5 inch bushing. And then this is a 1/2 inch pipe. I also have a 3/4 inch one. And then I have this main one right here that I leave as permanent, okay? But the rest of them I leave where I can put this over the end of the pipe and then just fit this one in there, and I really don't have problems with it coming off, and it's really good. one last tip on this. You can glue this pipe into here using the PVC cement because you don't want it to come off. However long you want it. This one's about 12 to 14 inches. And then you can take you a small threaded, I guess they call it a bolt. It's going to be like a little mini machine bolt. I buy them to where they're longer than the pipe. I screw it down really tight, and then I take a Dremel, and when I cut it off with the Dremel, it heats the whole bolt up and it melts it right into the PVC. And I haven't had any problems out of it yet, okay? This will show you. And that's about all there is to it. I know this is a long video, but I want everyone to be successful at making their own equipment and not have to do as much experimenting as I have done. Again, it's still saved me money in the long run, but this is probably the lightest weight, cheapest, extremely effective sucker tube that you're gonna make. I know there's 100 different methods, but I guess you could say it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, and this is what I built first. This is what I feel comfortable carrying with me, and it hasn't let me down. So go out, build your own, send me a picture or a video of your own build, and I'll be happy. So I hope everyone learned something, and hope that answered all your questions as well. And I hope it also streamlined the process to making one of these, okay? So get out there, use it, and let me know how it works for you. Thanks for watching. I mean, I'm holding it down at a fairly steep angle. You can see a little trickle of water coming out of it. But watch how much pressure it has. Okay? You can shoot water probably 20 feet. If I can ever get this end off, I'll show you. There we go. Would you believe it? Foam. Another foam plunger. This is 3/4 inch pipe with the regular foam, and it's only got about a 2-inch section of it. It has such strong suction power. I tried putting about a 4 or 5-inch section and I couldn't even pull it. So this is probably what I'll be using from now on.